but also to use the monies that are now gained from these, or at least harvested from these extra expenditures, to go into service, public service, perhaps going into servicing e-citizen, going into the passports. My brother was talking about passports earlier. Right now, we have seen less, I don't know whether to call it a less clog or less demand with the issuance of the passport, but you can see that they moved the issuance from the 4,500 and the 7,500 to the, I think, 919, the 10,000 one, the one that goes all the way to 10,000 shillings. So if we're able to bring these monies into improving public service, you have issues like the DCI clearance. These are issues, by the way, that mostly affect young Kenyans. Issues that this clearance, the credit score, where you see that you get clearance regarding loans and services, those kinds of services. If that money can go to that kind of, yes, correct, the CRB. If that money can go into servicing some of these installations, if it can go into engaging more JSS teachers into permanent and pensionable positions, then that will make sense. But if we're just seeing cuts, but we're not going to see improvement in services from these so-called cuts, then it's not going to make sense. I don't know if this is still the position, but as of yesterday, I think I saw that parliamentarians are going to get a hike in their salaries and allowances. Mm-hmm. It's ironic that they would even have that going on at a time like this when, like I previously said, we are on uncharted waters, uncharted political waters. Why would they allow themselves to be put again in the middle of such an unpopular situation with members of the public? Mm-hmm. So if it's possible for us to get those austerity cuts serving Kenyans in terms of improved public service, then it will make sense. And one thing, Zainab, and I would hope that our government would not be deceptive with this issue. Kenyans do not have an issue with paying taxes, number one. Kenyans do not have an issue with budgetary allocations, but Kenyans have an issue with hemorrhaging of our economy.
How the money is spent.
Exactly, how money is spent in this country. That is the issue we have. Mm-hmm. And as far as that is concerned,
imetolewa juu amepatikana watu wake. Alama ya pili ambayo ilikuwa kwa peka, nilikuwa nalia nikasema leo waliweka risasi 20 ya Kenya nzima ndio imemmaliza. Haikuwa ni hiyo, tukaambiwa hapo ni dawa. Walikuwa wanaweka dawa ingia wapi? Ingia kwa mwili. Nikauliza swali la tatu, na mbona mkuu mmoja umefura upande moja? Akasema hapo ni bullnet ilipikwa mahali pale, na hiyo bullnet ilikuwa ya nguvu, ilitokea huku ikapasua mshipi mmoja, ile mshipi kubwa nzito kwa hiyo mkuu, so ikaanza kufunja damu, na ikafunja damu kwa wingi. Na bila ilikuwa inafunja damu kwa wingi, hiyo ndio ilikuwa ya nguvu, ikalemea yeye. So nikauliza, na bullnet hii ni alama ilikuwa ya bullnet peke yake kwa hiyo mkuu? Nikaambiwa ni hivyo. Nikasema woi, mimi washikwe huyu, hivi ndio maisha yatakuwa Kenya hii? Maisha yatakuange mabullnet kupasua mikuu kama mshumeno ama walikuwa wanapika randa, na randa yenyewe kararua upande moja. Kumbe hii ndio maisha yetu, tutakuwa tunapikanga kura na huku bullnet zinakujia kwa mikuu. Huku tunapika kura, huku bullnet kwa mikuu. Wananchi, tuangalia mahali hapo, hizo bullnet tutazikubali saa yote. Zinaingilia kwa mikuu, wewe utoke na mkuu ende upige kura. Ukirudi bullnet ikuja ikupata kwa mkuu, na ulitoka na mkuu. Kwa hivyo hata kura ijayo tena tuchue ni bullnet ndio itakuwa wapi? Kwa mikuu zetu. Tusipike kura, tukae kwa nyumba. Na president sasa atakuwa ni nani? Na huko anaomba maombi, makanisa tuombe, wanatamu tuombe, na huko naye anatuomba na nini? Na mabullnet. Tutafanyaje? Mimi shikwe huyu, uchungu pato niko nayo katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Tangu president wa kwanza mpaka wa leo tumeshangaa.
Kuna mama ya mwingine.
Kwa majina ni Maria Mchomba. Kwa majina ni Maria Lohola Shikwe. Mimi ninashangaa. Tuko na watoto walemavu. Tutakuwa tunaficha watoto kwa nyumba. Wakitoka nje wanafanyia unyama kama hivi. Na tuko na watoto kama indakano pikia rais wetu kura. Tutawatupa, tutawapeleka wapi ama tuwafunge kwa miti? Tunauliza rais wetu atusaidie hapo.
Wait.
All right, those are live pictures coming to you from the CBD here in Nairobi. Of course, just seeing police using tear gas to try and disperse protesters who were hurling stones at the police officers, because it's been a running battle, you know, for the better part of today, whereby we've been able to see quite a lot of action happening on the streets. What you've been able to see just a few minutes ago is that those hurling of stones at police officers and the use of tear gas to try and disperse the protesters who are gathering on the streets of the CBD. Right now, of course, some of the protesters gathering, they are just, you know, as they continue with their picketing, which we say is, of course, their constitutional right, with police officers.
Songa hapo mbele kidogo. Hapo mbele.
Let's come back to, we've been able to see what was happening in Nakuru.
Right, that's the situation there in Karatina in Nyeri, and of course we can see the crowd sort of gathering again, and they're putting stones, taking stones and then placing them on the road. There is a fire that has been lit along the road. We saw a heavy contingent of police as well that had earlier on tried to disperse the crowd. So Josiah, who is there, is our team member and will be giving us the pictures of exactly what is happening. We'll also bring you back to what is also happening along Wayaki Way and all the way to Kangemi, where the situation has not been
At the state, what does that speak to?
I think, Bran, the lack of accountability and arrogance in addressing these issues is one of the reasons which is catalyzing the protest. You know, recently we had the roundtable meeting with the president, the interview, I mean at the media house. Mm-hmm. And when he spoke about the young man in Rongai, it was so sad. It was very sad. Because I watch TV and I've seen that woman like 3 times before the president spoke. And she kept mentioning the 8 bullets.
Other salaries are going to be increased according to the, that Gazette notice. If I can just have a look at that, you have the salaries of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, the Attorney General, who is Justin Muturi, the Head of Public Service, Felix Koskei and Secretary of the Cabinet Mercy Wanjau is now going to hit 990,000 shillings each, up from 957,000 shillings. You have members of parliament and senators whose current salary is 725,000 will have their pay increased to 739,600 shillings monthly. Governors, their pay salaries has also been adjusted from 957,000 to 990,000. You have MCAs who are receiving 154,000. Now they're going to be getting 164,000. Just looking at that, and I mean, this Gazette notice was issued last year, but the situation is different right now, and Kenyans are not happy with the physical state of our country. What will our leaders do right now?
You know, it's only that I think the conversation has started at the right time, even as we get...
What kind of system is this?
Okay, let me ask this. Does that then make you feel like the head of state is somehow doesn't have, is not in touch with what is happening on the ground?
Allow me wrap up my submissions. If that's a government pathologist sent by the government, in presence of the mother who has lost a child, says that this child was short funds, and because of the implications of the bullet into the arteries, he died. Whereas the mother standing there saying that this boy was shot 8 times, and even the dad to that baby said that we are not in agreement with that report. And up to now, no government official has come out to explain whether it was a mismatch or miscommunication. To mean they are comfortable with lying and telling the public things are not true. Let me finish up. We have Ministry of Youth Affairs in this country. We have Ministry of Health in this country. We have not seen the minister in charge of youth coming out to condemn police brutality on young people. We've not seen the minister of
wastages and spending. He will still tell you, how will that put bread on my table? In short, what these boys need to hear is the same language that he has addressed them prior to the election, whereby he told them, huyu kijana mwenye anauza mahindi karibu na barabara, after the election mimi nikuwa rais, maisha yake itakuja kubadilika hivi. Money will be injected from downwards coming upwards, in the opposite of devolution. These are the kind of issues that these boys were informed. And that is now the kind of mindset. With that mindset, that's why they have elected the president. But now on the question of what they now see and read every day, despite meeting or finding what they expected, is a member of parliament is getting more salaries. MC is getting salary increment. AG is getting salary increment. This now places them in a situation of desperation. They ask themselves, can we wait up until 2027? They find it to be a very long time. They can't even wait for that particular time to do something about the situation. If we reduce their salaries and the president tells us that he's going to inject some measures that is going to save us some money, he is still making fun of us. Ask yourself one question. Call the hotels in Mombasa. The last 2 weeks, all those hotels have been filled. Do you know why? The ministries are trying to finish up the little that has remained in their pockets. My own clients, some of the county assemblies that I act for, have been clearing my money. I'm being paid actually properly, because I'm told this is the time not to make sure that money goes back to the exchequer. Mm-hmm. They are now on a spending spree. It's like they have a deadline within which they must finish that fund. So many county assemblies, county executive committee members, national government parastatals, all of them are now in beaches and hotels around in Mombasa and Malindi. Mm-hmm. It's because they're now trying to spend to the last coin those particular budgeted amounts for the financial year. Why must you finish that money as a country? Hiyo pesa kwani hatuwezi weka for the following financial year. So if we end up having such mindset, or if we end up thinking of how we can reduce on such wastages, tutakuwa mahali. Mm-hmm. But for now, the way everything is being run, the way he's handling things, the way he's lying, the way he's still misleading the media, the way he's not being empathetic, we will not get anything right up until the next election. Mm-hmm. But now, you know, it's always good to be a bit optimistic, as Kenyans are always. Mm-hmm. He is our president. He has the power in his hand, and he has 3 years to go. There's a lot he can still do. Basic things, simple things that he can do. Some of them being, he can get himself some good advisors who can tell him this is not what the youth of this country want. He can get himself proper advice in terms of who is in charge of the State Department of Public Service. Someone somewhere should tell him, gentlemen, this is how things should be. The judiciary, the judiciary keeps on asking for more funds, yes. But now he is supposed to also resonate with them and tell them, guys, this is the situation of our country, we cannot give you more money. But he can only do that if he is not adding more money for the
Kametolewa nguo. Kasim, huyo demu amefanya nini? Sijui. Ametolewa nguo. Imagine anaingia kwa wanaume akiwa amevaa vibaya. Kametolewa nguo, aenda akavaa vizuri. Amevaa vibaya. Ni nini amefanya? Kadem kametolewa nguo, alikuwa amevaa vibaya na anaonyesha wanaume matako. Wanaume ni gani? Wakawambia kuja hapa sasa utoe zote. Kametolewa nguo. Madam ukikuja kuandamana faini vizuri. Vijana si wa kujoki. Tiaga si expire. Hapana. Wameenda kuchokozana maskari. I think wameenda kuita maskari wengine.
Uni president gani huyo anapeana authority apige live? Uni president mgani anasema amri tupiwe live? Bana tupiwe live. Hakuna mwingine. Live. Nitakuwa Nyeri. Ndio nini? Nataka kutoka ofisi ande.
Thanks pia wewe pole but I'm just wewe unanipatia pole. Nini nimehappen kwangu na nipatia pole. Wamekuja police station kuchokoza. Hata niende ningie police station niwaonyeshe. Wamekuja hapa Kisii Central nje. Tumeona, niliona, nilishika. Yangu.
Unasema ulikuwa unakulanga ugali lakini siku hizi tunakula mchele, unacheki?
Hatutaki Ruto kabisa, Ruto aende nyumbani.
Huku ni kimbi jamani. Walikuja retreat, sasa tena wanarudi wengine. Yawa. Kushoka dayo. Wameenda na huko chini, siwezi wafuata. Sasa turudi na huko chini, angalia wanatokelezea na wapi.
We have had a meeting of the Central Committee of the ODM party. Central Committee is the organ of the party that deals with managerial issues in the party and also issues of policy. We have had a comprehensive meeting today, and we have a statement which is going to be read to you by the Secretary General, Honorable Edwin Sifuna.
Thank you, Your Excellency. We proceed straight to the statement of the Central Committee meeting of 2nd July 2024. And it is titled, "This is Kenya's Last Best Chance." The Central Committee of the party has this morning held a meeting to deliberate on the ongoing crisis in Kenya. This meeting is happening at a most difficult time for our country, given all that has happened in the last few weeks. We are acutely aware that many families are still in mourning, having lost their loved ones, with civil society groups estimating that over 30 young Kenyans fell to the regime bullets in the course of the street protests. Many of these families are yet to bury these victims. On behalf of the entire ODM party, the Central Committee extends its deepest condolences to all those who have lost their loved ones and pray that God
police and the bosses, the people you've employed, the media, who is the fourth estate, has informed you of mass or unjustified use of force against peaceful protesters, by extension, elimination of lives. And then you rise to read a statement that, pursuant to provisions of Gen Z scrutiny, says it was AI generated. You start congratulating the police for a work well done. Which work was that? Eliminating the lives you are supposed to protect? How will you convince them now that you feel sorry, that you owe to them an apology? At this point in time, no sympathy may really count, because sympathy, personally, I don't like people who sympathize with me. If you can't empathize with me, go away with your sympathy. You need to sympathize, empathize. So these two factors go hand in hand. Even at most, sympathy may not work. I don't think with what is happening, at least if there was standstill of activities, especially from the state side, no deployment of armed police officers, the police can come to the streets unarmed. If in an event that they are overwhelmed, they can call for backup. There is now a justification for use of force. Here you come already armed to the teeth with very dangerous arsenals, tear gas canisters. Whom do you want to tear gas? You come with guns, bullets, you are shooting at demonstrators. Then you, in your mindset, you are executing violence and you expect reciprocation of peace. My friend, we are all human beings. We cannot entertain. So the president and this misadvisors,
there's no room for redeeming him.
There is, I think there is room for every other thing, but the redemption side. Rais amechoma CV yake na makaratasi na kila kitu.
Brian, let me just dive into the issue of police slightly. You know, the kind of arrests we've seen, more so away from the protests, those after protest arrests. I mean, I don't understand. For instance, case study of Alfred Keter. That guy was, if that
call a member of parliament, but now it just says that the parliament will enact the necessary legislation that will be used to govern the process of removal. Again, now when you look at, I was involved in one of the petitions whereby some were interested in recalling their member. Now, when you look at the Elections Act, sections 45 to 48, it's a very tough process because
to identify himself,
covering
their faces in masks and hoods should be addressed, should be handled as a police officer. And that's why you find there is so much confrontation and tension between the civilians and the police, because the bile is so much on the people that we know that we are agitating for what is right, but these guys in uniform are just here to contain us. But there is a group somewhere who are not even, and I've just seen some of them here on the screens. They have covered themselves fully, so they just rotated within the town and pounce on you. Let me ask you, if somebody pounced on you, because the situation is, right now the situation is so bad. And if somebody pounced on me that way, then I react badly and they lose their lives. Then the government will now start wailing that, oh, the citizens are killing the police officers. Those people should not be classified as police officers, because they are putting the image of the police service
on jeopardy. I call them
goods. And look at these people. Do you think, and I want to tell you, on Tuesday, I was in town, and to some extent I thought there were not going to be mandamanos, until the police officers started throwing tear gas.
No, we were with you.
We were with you.
Yes, in the morning.
In fact, we did not even know. We were even asking ourselves, are these Gen Zs may give up in the coast? But a police officer just come from their lorries and start tear gassing a group of people, chanting and doing nothing.
A group of journalists. He ordered the journalists to vacate the street. And I was asking him, do you have the land title deeds of this street? Where do you want them to go? They are doing their job. Exactly. You do your job. So
and that was the genesis. That was the genesis of Mandamano.
Okay, let me come to you, Jafet.
For me, I feel there is still room for redemption.
There's still room for redemption. How does he redeem himself?
Stop lying to your president.
For me, I believe so.
No.
President William Samoei Ruto will be the man that I knew and that I decided to campaign for. Remember, I came from a constituency that was predominantly an opposition zone. But I took that risk to believe, because I sat down, listened to his manifesto, we went around, listened to him. If only he can be the man that I know, and calm down and listen to what Kenyans are saying, he can
redeem himself.
He can redeem himself. Number two, I want him to come down and do exactly what he did during the campaigns. Not send people, not form committees.
Yeah.
I want him to come in these streets.
And I know the place of the NIS, because we're also giving them a lot of budgetary allocations. They must come up with the real-time issues or real-time information that saves our nation when they're supposed to do so. So these are some issues that they can address at their level, and also if that particular allegation that the Deputy President has made, the NIS boss and his team, they need to up their game. It's an important thing. You know, sometimes there's a certain level of criticism that you can take it positively. If Nurdin and his team, they know it, if they know that they have failed and they can do something about it, let them do something about it. If the president knows there is no problem with these two and he may perceive this as a political statement, he can have a sit down with his deputy. But for us as Kenyans, we don't care about some things. We don't have the power to remove the NIS boss. The other way is, what you can do is, ideally, just like someone has done already against him, has filed a petition. I've seen that was done by one of the senior lawyers.
Yesterday.
If you find a certain public official that is not able to do his constitutional duty or his statutory duty, you have the leeway to take him to court, so that the court can compel him to do certain jobs. And always when you file a petition against a public office holder, that puts them in trouble. I can tell you that from experience. Bring out all your facts, a court of law will have a look at it. If there's a need to even summon him physically or personally, the court will be able to give the audience to both sides.
And
so
what would be the risk of our politicians sort of politicizing this particular matter, and we sort of, you know,
it's really dangerous.
It's
really, because NIS goes to how the security system of our country operates, from the borders to how we tackle terrorism within and both in and outside our country, to so many things, to even the youth who are protesting. These are the people who advise the president. But now, the NIS boss does not advise him as such, he advises the president. If he finds a problem in terms of the kind of advices that the president is being given, why can't he have that discussion with the president? That's the reality. If there's a problem with the NIS boss, you are the deputy president, there are certain political issues that can be done. Do you know how? Our parliament, you have given them a lot of powers. One of the members of parliament can actually invite the NIS boss to parliament and ask him these questions. He can be asked, what have you done about this? Did you properly advise the president? There are certain democratic or better or mature ways of addressing this than going to Mombasa, calling the media and telling them that this whole problem that is happening in the country, this is the problem. And also, for the people of Northeastern, again, I've seen some leaders who are now trying to address the media and telling the deputy president off. It should not go to that point. When the gentleman who is now heading the NIS, he's heading the NIS advocate at the national level function. He's no longer representing the people of Garissa or Wajir or Mandera. He is there because of his position as a Kenyan, or his competence or his qualification. So also this Mtwetu syndrome, which we come up with, that we end up attacking politically the other party, should not be there. But I think as I'll go back to telling you this, that the central person who can address everything today is our president. Even the question of the allegations that have been leveled against the NIS boss, who has leveled those allegations against it is his personal assistant, literally the deputy president. He can call both of them, have an office meeting with them, read the Riots Act and tell them, guys, you are here to work with me, not to address media conferences. So this again, this is a pointer to how his system.
The convection of rainfall from Lake Victoria, it was too huge. So we going forward must always remember that the sovereignty of the people and the supremacy of the Constitution is out of question. We, through this protest, have realized that this is the opportune time to ration the salaries of the MPs and people who earn out of public coffers, so that we do not go forward ballooning the already ballooned wage bill at the expense of service delivery. Today, we use 46% of our GDP to pay what? Salaries. We are using 46. It should be 35. Out of the 100 shillings we are collecting for revenue, we are spending at least, out of 10 shillings, we are spending 7 or 8 shillings to pay for the debt.
So
going forward, the protest has reminded us that even if the executive, parliament has been captured by the executive and the executive captured by IMF, we can actually go for the big fish and capture IMF.
Okay, can let me come to you in terms of looking at what has transpired in the past few weeks and moving forward, in terms of how will the future of this nation look like, and what percentage of it will have been shaped by what we've experienced in the past few weeks?
First, I would like to make it clear that, and I said this before, that in 2027, we are going to have a serious uprise of young people at the ballot, either voting or contesting. Take it from me and put it in the bank. And that will change the dynamics of this country. Because what is happening today might not, I mean, it might not fade people's minds by 2027. Because we've seen this. We are seeing, and do you know that as we talk right now, the East African community has communicated, and the cost of oil is going to go up. Double what we have today. That's the status we have right now. The cost of cooking oil, diapers, and pampers that we are talking about here are going to go up as per the East African community. And that thing, if you read through that thread, it is the Kenyan government that applied for such measures. So that if the finance bill collapses, they have other ways. We will meet with them at the right time. Back to the question. The protest that we've seen is an organic process, not led by anybody, not political, and not tribal. That tells you that you, Branham Wai, the grandson of Nabongo Mumia, you can go and contest in Kapsaret in 2027. Provided that you have an agenda, you can be an MP there. That's what that's the dynamics of politics that we are going to have going forward.
So a tribeless kind of political environment.
A tribeless kind of politics, issue-based politics, agenda-based politics. That's why if my brother is saying that the Muindi guy must go home in Kisumu East, I don't have any problem. And let me tell you, as a young people, we are going, and that is what we are doing. That's why you see this thing is not mobilized from anywhere. People are just coming out. This is a youth agenda. It's a youth-centric thing. We are going to vote young leaders by virtue of them being young. Leave alone the agenda.
How do you maintain momentum?
That's what I tend to disagree
I
with
believe we come from a
voting
population.
young people.
Let me justify.
Let me
quantify.
We need sobriety in leadership.
Let me
Osoro
quantify.
is young. Kimani Ichung'wah was just walking in 2-8 taking selfies. I mean, very funny looking photos in the streets of Kiambu. He was young.
I have not finished. I have not finished. I'm saying we are going to elect young people. One, they are young. Two, like I said earlier, agenda. That's why I said, if you have an agenda and a proper manifesto, and you are visionary and an energetic person, young person, who can move this country forward,
so we
can elect you in Kapsaret, we can elect you in Kikuyu, and take back that guy who's in the
Do you think we need to cap the age at which some people can actually vie for political office? Because let me finish this. This is a young generation, right?
Yes.
It will get into elective politics. You'll be elected. You will go into the house. But 20 years down the line, you'll still be there, and you'll be fighting to still retain your seats. So do we then say, okay, at this particular point, moving forward, should we have a cap and say the population of this nation can only be represented by people of this particular age? Once you're this, kindly get up.
I think it will be unconstitutional to cap it on age and look at it in this angle. I am young, I am elected, and maybe we cap it at, let's say, the age of 40 and below. So I am elected, I'm going to sit there pretty well doing nothing, knowing that at the end of the day, even if I hit 41 and above, there is nothing they will do. What we can do is to limit the term of an MP. Imagine Shakil Shabir has been my MP since I was in class 4, I mean class 3. That was way back, I don't know, in 2 or 4 or whatever. Since I was very young, the guy has been sitting in the August house, missing and protesting in airport. So, I mean at the airport. So you can imagine the MP I have. So why don't we just come up with a law as the people of Kenya to limit an MP's term to a one-term MP, so that we have people deliver, and within this one term, we also provide very strict and implementable strategies of recall so that we have accountable leadership.
Yeah, let me just chip in before you ask another question.
Let me go to Jeff.
Let me disagree with the incoming member.
I'll give you an opportunity.
This guy.
No, I'll give you an opportunity. Just a moment. Please. Just a moment.
Okay.
Kindly.
You know, Brian, I think what we can do is to limit the term. But when it comes to age, it's not a war between the old and the young.
But this is the thing. You limit the term, and yet we've had conversations around term limits in this country just recently before all these protests were actually happening.
There are term limits.
No, just listen. What the elected officials were actually saying is that 2 terms, even for a president, is not enough. If you limit the term of a member of parliament to represent you, to one term, they'll argue it is not enough to be able to...
the elected leaders that you're talking about are the same leaders that you're discussing on recalling. The reason why they want extra terms, they want more years in power is because of the greed that they're having. A true and good leader can change his area of jurisdiction within a very short time. If they can only understand
what am I saying
their role.
on the streets. Yeah. It is very wrong. These policemen or these...
Okay, wait.
if only they can understand.
Commentary is my job. Sankara. Commentary on whatever is happening on the streets is my job. Okay, Japhet.
If only they can understand their role and do exactly what they were elected to do. 2 terms are enough. President Ruto served for Uhuru served for 2 terms. President Kibaki served for the 2 terms, and we saw what they did.
There's no government.
Talking about
of course, just a moment, the picture that you've been seeing on your screen, of course, you're seeing Kenyans there with what we call rungus, of course. I think that was the photo before. It's somehow getting my guests all agitated. I don't know why. Okay, let's get back to you, Japheth.
Brian, if you can get the right leadership, if you can get the right people in power, that's our problem.
Okay.
It's not about the age, it's about having the right people. And that's why you are telling the president you appointed the wrong people. You got the wrong people into leadership. You appointed the wrong cabinet. I remember, I think it's a year after his election, when he was talking to his people, the people that he had appointed to different parastatals. You remember him saying, I've even come to notice some of you don't even understand.
Yeah.
So that one can only tell you that he knows the problem that is in his government. What he needs to do is to come out and make sure he changes where change is required. By so doing and listening to what the young people are telling him, he will redeem himself.
Okay. My next question will be in issues to do with because one of the things that has actually come out in this particular protest and the demands that have been put forward is the issue of budgeted corruption, where you say, okay, there are offices that we need to actually be scrapped. Now, I know we've mentioned this in passing as we were continuing with our conversation, but I'd like us to get into the details of that and how looking at that is going to solve the issue of, a proper budget first, and also just getting to finance some of the key issues and the key ministries that will be that are very center when it comes to the functionality of the country. Let me start with you, Ken.
Thank you. Brian, if we have many unconstitutional offices in place, and the biggest issue we have is these offices are funded from the exchequer. That if you talk of maybe PCS, Prime Cabinet Secretary, the office holder is also the Minister for Foreign Affairs. Why can't we just have a constitutional office which is Minister for Foreign Affairs?
Okay.
Get that? Because if you look at this office, it's budgeted for in billions of money. Get that? Down from that, we have the office now of the spouse. Away from that, we have the spouse of the deputy president. These are not offices articulated within the Constitution 2010, as we envisioned the devolution. If we scrap off these offices and divert those cash that are being put in these offices to development, I want to tell you we are going to save a lot of money. We talked of CAS. Maintaining those CAS could have costed us many millions of money. But now the president put himself forward and said he's going to stop it and put it aside. I think he needs to step forward and scrap off office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, office of the spouse, the three spouses, because each and every office has a budget. And then this issue of renovation left, renovation right, I mean, what are we renovating? How do we renovate a house worth 400 million with 600 million? I mean, 600, you get that, the figures. It doesn't make sense. We need to cut this cost, we need to cut these expenditures, and then going to Parliament, it is high time that we revise the salaries of members of Parliament. Get that? So that we can have a cap for that salary.
What would you propose? What would you propose?
Because this guy.
I saw Millie Odhiambo saying we can reduce it to 200,000.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Let's go. Let them put it even at 300, and then erase or put away all these many allowances that they are enjoying. Okay, and a member of Parliament, I think a member of Parliament should be entitled to an allowance, travel allowance, on official duty, maybe out of this country. Okay. Because if you're going to your constituency to do your constitutional mandate as enshrined by the people, I don't think there's none of you being given an allowance to go to a constituency.
And then, on that official travel, why would I pay an MP from the Kenyan Parliament to go and benchmark an activity in Rwanda that Rwandese claim that the policy was sought from Kenya? Like the policy, the dairy farming. We had a bunch of MPs who left Nairobi for Kigali. They went to benchmark to see how dairy business is done in Rwanda, only to be reminded by the authorities in Rwanda that the policy in place was actually borrowed from your country. So that do not still justify responsible spending. Fiscal discipline, very important. Yeah. I think I have told the president everything that he wants to hear. Maybe what I would advise the entire government is to start doing the opposite. At least for the first time, do not do the same thing every time and expect a different result. Let us do new things in a different way, then get different results. But what I know, whatever it is that is happening in Kenya today, is a revelation of this statement, that you can lie to some people sometime, and sometimes some of the people, but not all the people all the time. The president actually set himself on fire. He incited the people of Kenya through their problems against the existing, the previous administration, where he served as the second in command, and by extension an isolation of the deputy president and opposition leader. Now it is time to only promise what you can achieve. Cut your coat according to your size. Do not go on top of roof cars and start telling the people, hawa watu hawajui kile wanatufanyia kwa kuongeza bei ya mafuta, kwa kuongeza bei ya fertilizer, kwa kuongeza bei ya nini. And then you get into office and you start doing the exact opposite. But so going forward, we want accountable leadership. I will always say that the moment we start being accountable, we will have a solution as a country. The moment we start reducing on unnecessary state expenses, look at our recurrent expenditure. We are using a huge balance of that budget on paying, of our budget on paying salaries. So we are paying salaries for counties and people who do not deliver. If service delivery was something to go by, overtaxation is not a new policy. It has worked in other parts of the world where citizens are extremely taxed, but the services they get are just top-notch. The roads have no dimples like we have in Nairobi. You get sick, an ambulance will flash. I'm not saying will come, will flash to your place and take you to an hospital where you will receive an emergency medical treatment. Come to Kenya. You are sick, you go to an hospital, they tell you, this is an emergency medical service, they tell you, you have to pay some money because the systems are not working. Can we restart the engine? Can we press 1 to reset the engine? Because pressing 1 is just invoking provisions of Article 1, the sovereignty of the people. Press 1 to redeem the engine so that we have a country where, regardless of where I am, I feel safe. The deputy president promised during elections that the police were going to escort drunk people home. What I'm seeing in the streets of today are not police escorting people home, but they are police escorting people to their graves.
Those ones are not drunk.
And
so you can imagine the drunk.
These are not drunk people. If I don't forget, Ken, you're distracting me. If I don't forget, they promised us a scenario where the police were going to escort drunk people home. At least we are not seeing the people drunk. Why are they being escorted to the graves? We have seen youths only being targeted as violent prisoners, criminals. But in the same instances, we've seen police officers escorting injured televisions to unknown destinations.
When he says we were promised by the deputy president,
we were promised
I thought he was going to mention the people of Kenya are promised to go eat mchele na nyama. That's beside the point. Now, let me come to you. All these recommendations look good. Yeah. At some extent, they look. When you tell that to someone, they look like they can be done. But let's talk about the goodwill. That is because it requires political goodwill to actually get to achieve to achieve this. If we say we want to reduce the salaries of the members of parliament, so that because we don't want to be spending so much on recurrent expenditure and all that and paying salaries, a big chunk of your budget going into that. What would be the best rationale to go about this? Because even the same MPs will not, to some extent, agree to this.
You know, Brian, sometimes it becomes so difficult to answer such questions because of the reason why we are in the streets. The political goodwill, the leadership itself, the readiness, in those who are in government to listen to whatever that you are telling them. Imagine if they were to listen what the young people are telling them the first day the demonstrations began. You won't be here seeing what is happening in Nairobi CBD currently. The problem is that we've been having leaders who are not ready to listen. Generally, we have a system that is corrupt, a system that has been curtailed, a system that is rotten. And that's why we are telling the president, listen, it's time you come and listen to us. I've told you I'm speaking as an insider in the UDA party, a party that, the president's party. We've got people who are not listening to what people want to tell the president. There's a certain kind of arrogance that you're seeing in people surrounding the president. What the president must do, number one, he has to reshuffle his cabinet and get the right people. Number two, he has to go to parliament and replace leadership in parliament.
And the police, as demonstrators barricaded that busy Nairobi-Karatina road. We do understand that police have exhausted their tear gas and have retreated, and only KDF vehicles have been allowed to use that road. So that is the current situation right now. When you come back to the CBD, here in the Central Business District, the police is still engaging protesters in running battles as they try and form a crowd. So the police are lobbing tear gas at the protesters who are trying to form a crowd or a gathering here in Nairobi. And away from that, we'll also perhaps get pictures of what is happening in Kangemi or along the Wayaki Way, where the Nairobi police boss Adamson Bungei is also leading the reinforcement of GSU police officers, where protesters managed to push back the police away from the Kangemi flyover. That is exactly what we saw earlier on happening. And this is following the hashtag Occupy Everywhere protests that were pushed. We've seen happening from protesters. I beg your pardon, protesters, business district, by the way. It's a tale of two Nairobi. Many shops are closed and it's characterized by sparse human and car traffic activity. And you know, a lot is happening there. So we're going to be showing a lot of things we've spoken about the state of the economy. You are a young person and you're seeing everything that is happening. Why? Whoever is watching, including our leaders, what is your...
How do we leave it for the future generations? We must learn to accommodate one another. We must learn to have conversations with other Kenyans to own property and to be able to move around with their liberties freely. On top of that, I would like to call for all of us to unite. We must love each other and we must love this country more than anything else. Kenya must always triumph. And to our leaders, and especially our central leader, our president, you have a heavy cross to carry in terms of leading this country. You must be the first man to say that I am sorry. You must take responsibility for this country. You must show goodwill to Kenyans, and you must show responsibility to the people around you. That's it.
All right. Suleiman, your final thoughts?
I think what I'll say is it's a watch and see as to how things will be turning out going forward in the next few days. But one thing that is a bit clear to me is that today the level of damage is lower, much lower than what we have seen the last few days, especially last week Tuesday. It's a bit commendable on the part of both the protesters, the people of Kenya, and the security apparatus, because I think the more we minimize the damage that is felt and the lives that are lost, it's a win for us. In terms of going forward, we look forward to a scenario whereby the protesters and the president or the executive as such will be able to have a discussion around all the issues they're talking about. I look forward to a week that will end possibly without what we can see today. A week that will allow us to go back to our jobs. A week that will allow our youths to have a rest so that they do not endanger their lives or get injured as such. But most importantly, I look forward to the president giving them an opportunity.
Of protesters who are disguised as part of those who are protesting, but with the main intent of robbing their businesses. And so many counted losses in their millions and hundreds of thousands from their stock being stolen. We had some shops that sell mobile phones that were robbed. We have others that sell ordinary clothes for the public, and those as well were robbed without being spared. And so today what we've witnessed is the businessmen right here, as you can see, some of them were organized and into several groups, mostly manning their businesses, manning the buildings in which they are working in, just to ensure that no one makes their way into these businesses. Also, we've also witnessed vandalism to a high degree. I can only relate these to what we were witnessing during the Raila Odinga time, the protests led by Azimio la Umoja, not everywhere, but particularly in the areas of Mathare and Kibra, where people would come out ready to vandalize whatever they would land their hands on, regardless of the consequences of that. And so we have put some of the businesses, including one of a shoe shine located right here at Odeon, was burnt down as we watched. Some of those kiosks that are placed along this street, that is Tomboya Street, were also touched and put down on the street. We also witnessed something unique that we've not witnessed in this protest for the last 2 weeks. That is the burning of tires, closing of roads, and these demonstrators seriously attacking police officers. One of our colleagues happened to be found in the line of fire, that is Joel Chacha, and in the process we went to take him to the hospital, where we found 2 more police officers who were receiving treatment, having been injured in the process. And what pictures coming to you are what describe or paint a picture of what happened earlier on. Whatever you're seeing here is a remnant of a burnt tire. This is what was closing this road earlier on. And probably just to get to have a look at this piece of business, where we always have young people, men and women, rise up early in the morning and polish and clean shoes for people. However, it has found itself victim of the wrath of the protesters who were right here wreaking havoc within the CBD, and all is left is a metallic frame, since they could not access inside of it. And looking at the other street now, you can see what a mess it has been the entire day, even as police officers tried their best to contain those who were within the CBD. Remember, Arelon, the Malindi Law Court on 4 days ago issued directives temporarily halting the use of tear gas canisters, rubber bullets, as well as water cannons against peaceful demonstrators. But from the conduct of demonstrators and protesters right here in Nairobi's CBD, police officers have resulted in doing that. Not very sure on what metrics that will be argued, whether they've done it in accordance to the law, whether they've disobeyed the court order. But for real, fact is, those tear gas canisters have been used to disperse protesters. They've had their rubber bullets trying to disperse the protesters. Water cannons have been used right here, trying to contain the huge number of protesters, mostly young people, like the person passing right now. Very young people, a very young composition of demonstrators, mostly for those we've spoken to. Some have told us they've come all the way from Kariobangi to the CBD, and asking the motivation, some were not particularly clear on what was pushing them to that decision. And sites right here. Remember, Arelon, the Malindi Law Court on 4 days ago issued directives temporarily halting the use of tear gas canisters, rubber bullets, as well as water cannons against peaceful demonstrators. But from the conduct of demonstrators and protesters right here in Nairobi's CBD, police officers have resulted in doing that. Not very sure on what metrics that will be argued, whether they've done it in accordance to the law, whether they've disobeyed the court order. But for real, fact is, those tear gas canisters have been used to disperse protesters. They've had their rubber bullets trying to disperse the protesters. Water cannons have been used right here, trying to contain the huge number of protesters, mostly young people, like the person passing right now. Very young people, a very young composition of demonstrators, mostly for those we've spoken to. Some have told us they've come all the way from Kariobangi to the CBD, and asking the motivation, some were not particularly clear on what was pushing them to that decision. And sites right here are those of businessmen continuing to patrol the city around their businesses, ensuring that we do not have numbers accumulating around their businesses. What you can see right now, right there, is a clear profile of who were demonstrating today within the CBD. Remember, among the things that were informing this protest were the rejection of the finance bill, which was ongoing, that is rejecting Finance Bill 2024. And in an attempt to quell it, the president was pushed to a point where he had to withdraw the bill, and even in totality, withdraw it in totality. And questioned on the repercussions of that, the president has been clear that the country will have to deal with the repercussions of the government's decision to withdraw finance bill from parliament from being passed. And something else that was also in the bill was a number of issues. Youths complaining, saying that the wage bill of the country is a bit high. Over 40% of the country's income being used to pay wage bills instead of the recommended 35%, appearing to irk the youth, and who have recommended a number of issues and suggestions as to how the government can adapt to meet its metrics later. And also in the recommendations were to cut down on the expenditure by reducing the salary of the members of parliament. And I have a very rowdy crowd behind me right here, and so we'll just try and mitigate it, see if we can get away from them. If we can't, we just have to speak to a few of them to calm them down. But we're headed towards where police officers are for calm. And just to see, most of the streets here are usually busy. This street here, called Cabral Street, that neighbors in Menti, usually is a very busy stage. We also have matatus, most matatus plying Thika Road as well as Wayaki Way. They make their turn around this junction right here. And right now it is deserted in totality. People who are passing here are on foot, and we also have just a few guys passing here on foot, others on motorbikes, some on their private cars, but matatus on the street have not been seen for quite some time. Indeed, calm has returned for sure after the situation of vandalism, and that right there, police officers are using the tear gas canister to disperse the crowd that had overwhelmed us before we came to this direction. We've also had a number of people who've been injured, mainly police officers. We've also had a number of journalists sustaining some minor injuries, some from the stones being pelted by the protesters, and some as a result of the tear gas canisters that have exploded close to them. But comparing what we are currently witnessing now and what was currently, what has been there for the better part of the day, indeed, calm has been we are witnessing calm, and what we are having right now is just police officers trying to wrap up the day by pushing off those protesters who are continuing to make attempts to access the CBD. But for the better part of the day, most of them have not managed to cross Moi Avenue into the other streets of the town. And so police have managed to some extent to contain the numbers on the lower sides of the town. However, it is also not very clear whether protesters had a destination on the upper side of the town. But most of them, as we have mentioned earlier, were targeting to a good number of them were targeting to loot and rob the businesses on this side of town. And we will continue following up on whatever is happening in this part of town, and also ensuring that our viewers are not left behind on what is transpiring following these demonstrations that kicked off 2 weeks ago in the bid to push for the dropping of the finance bill in totality. Hashtag reject finance bill. On Tuesday, they had a hashtag Occupy Parliament, which they did and occupied successfully. Now you'll allow me to take it back to you in studio, where we'll be joining Milia Kisenya. Thank you very much, Milia. Hivyo ndo hali ilivyo kwa sasa, na tumeweza kumpasha mtazamaji yaliyojiri mchana kutwa hadi kufikia majira ya sasa, ambapo kumeonekana kuwa na hali ya utulivu. Lakini ni ruhusu kwa sasa nirejeshe kwako studioni.
Na asante sana Kagina, unahitaji kopo la maji kwa kutupatia tu, ikiwa ni taswira kamili kufikia sasa. Na ni jiji la Nairobi, ambapo katika takriban saa, mpenzi mtazamaji, kutoka majira ya asubuhi hadi kufikia sasa imekuwa tu mbio za mguni ponye, imekuwa tu ni majeneza zaidi ya 6 yakionekana tu yamemwagwa katika barabara ya Moi